For those of you that are here and wish to register your opposition or support but do not wish to testify, and I hope you don't wish to testify, because we already have an overload here. We have about 4 hours of testimony, and we have to be out of this room by 1 o'clock because it has been reserved for the Republican caucus. So I would ask, if you don't get a chance and you have sent in your pick card, please just make sure that you sign the blue paper, the blue sheet as well. If you are speaking and have written testimony, I ask that you give it to our clerk, Representative Barbara Shaw. If you have multiple copies, give them to Representative Myler over here, and he will keep track of them. And be sure that we will read your testimony. I would ask, however, that you not read your testimony when you come to testify. Please just hit the highlights. We will read your testimony. These two bills will get a subcommittee, and they will be looked in much greater detail. So be assured of that. Also, I would ask if any of you have a cell phone that you would please turn it off or put it on vibrate. We are going to go through this testimony very, very quickly, and I don't want a speaker to have her or his testimony interrupted by nice little jingles. So with that, I will recognize Representative Apropos. I'm sorry? Representative. All right, Representative Peterson, I'm sorry. I have my piles here, and I am going to hold you to listen your time. Except for you.
Oh, I'm just taking almost no time at all.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for taking time to hear the testimony in 1508 this morning. For the record, I am Lynette Peterson. I represent Hillsborough 21, which is the town of Merrimack. And I am just going to basically introduce this bill and let the experts do all the talking. I am going to just give you one example of Common Core math and a problem that you would find in a 4th grade math book. We'll say Mrs. Jones has 18 students. She asks them to count off by a certain number and make sure they end at 90. Now, with Common Core, what you would do is you would make 18 dots across your paper, and then you would fill in your dots, or you would make an array to get your answer. And hopefully they would come up with the correct answer. They would have 18 rows with 90, they'd come up with the answer of 5, hopefully with all their dots, once they count all their dots. Old math, they learn their multiplication tables, they figure division tables, they take 90, divide by 18, they come up with 5. Now I ask you, which way's quicker? Which way's more efficient? And with that, I'm going to let the experts do all the talking. I'll stay as long as I can. I have a full day down in judiciary, and I may skip out before it's over.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Questions for Representative Peterson? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Chris Munns, and again, I would ask Representative Munns if you would limit your time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Representative Chris Munns. I represent the town of Hampton in Rockingham County District 21. I'm also the at-large representative and chairman of the Winnicott High School School Board, which serves the towns of Northampton, Hampton, Hampton Falls, and Seabrook. I'm here to speak in opposition. I have prepared some written testimony that's going around, so I won't take up a lot of your time. I guess my message is that the Common Core will better prepare our students for the realities of the current economic environment that we live in, where our kids are not only competing with other kids in New Hampshire or New England, but they're competing with kids across the country and across the world. And the standards that have been created, I think will do a much better job of preparing them for that reality and allow them to be employed in New Hampshire and hopefully bring jobs to them.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for Representative Thomas? Thank you. The chair recognizes Representative Jane Cormier. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Representative Jane Cormier. I'm from Belknap District 8, the towns of Alton, Barnston, and Gilmanton. And I come to you in support of 1508, basically because I have many constituents and actually citizens throughout the state that have contacted me with regard to questions about Common Core and specific questions that have not been answered. And I feel these questions are so vital that until we get the answers to these questions, we should terminate. We should stop and do not pass go until we have the answers to these questions. For the time, I know that we have a lot of time, so I'm not going to do anything except go through the 4 questions quickly. And I would suggest that as legislators, we need to find out if we have answers to these questions. We haven't been able to get them yet. Where were the parents and the taxpayers brought into the discussion of the implementation of Common Core in New Hampshire? This was brought in July 2010. I can tell you the communities of Alton, Barnston, and Gilmanton there were no public hearings, there were no forums, there was no education to the parent or the taxpayers about Common Core in our communities. And I know from the voluminous numbers of people that have contacted me since I've been sort of a lightning rod for this issue, many people in this community have said the same thing. It was there and parents just didn't know about it. That is a serious question. What is the actual price tag of Common Core to our communities? What's it going to cost to put these subsequent assessments into place? There has never been, despite the fact that I have attended a number of DOE board meetings, public forums, hearings, this question has been asked of the New Hampshire DOE again and again, and we have never received a response of the fiscal responsibility. What is this going to cost our towns and our communities and our taxpayers to implement? There's no answer that has been forthcoming. Number 3. We have been told that by Commissioner Barry once at a board meeting in January that the Common Core was not voluntary for our communities. Then later on in Bedford, the statement was made that they never not adopted Common Core, but they only endorsed, quote, the standards. Okay, so which is it? Is Common Core voluntary to our communities here in New Hampshire, or is it a state mandate that has never been clearly defined? How can we as legislators say that we are comfortable with that status for our constituents? Clearly we need an answer to that. The data mining. This has been another issue, though we have spoken at several forums, a number of citizens, about the concern that we have about our children's and our families' data that is going to be part of these assessments. We've been told a range of answers that that's not happening, that that's not true, that's just fear-mongering. I've heard all of that. I've heard that, oh, well, New Hampshire has laws on the books that's going to stop or prevent that from happening. And I've also heard that there's no concern about that, don't worry about it. The truth of the fact is in December 11th, our U.S. Department of Education changed the federal FERPA laws. I've read them. You can read them too. They're very easy to find on the net. And they changed who can receive this information. In the past, it stayed in district. And there was a component of parental permission that has been removed. And, quote, authorized representatives, quote, personally receive access to non-student personal data. This data can be shared with, quote, trade unions, non-governmental agencies, and companies who develop educational products and services. And that does include the folks here in New Hampshire.
Representative Cormier,
Those are
you
the
have 5 minutes
That's
to ask
fine.
for 3.
That's right. Those are the 4 questions, and I believe that those need to be answered, and until we have those answers, we should not go any further. Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
Do you have a copy of your testimony?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for providing your testimony, Representative. I think you said you represent Alton, and if my memory serves me correctly, did not their school board say no to Common Core? And could you tell me what are they doing instead?
Thank you for the question. question. Common Core was adopted shortly after, I believe in July of 2010, right after they were put into effect, 5-0 on our school board. And when we spoke to our school board members, many didn't have any of the information about the assessments, all of the important information, in fact, that they needed to have. When we put that information before our board, and my goodness, some months ago, we asked for another vote. And that vote changed 3-2 to not have Common Core become part of the curriculum or as the program of educational curriculum in Alton. And since then, I think Manchester's had issues with it. Communities all in New Hampshire right now are having a lot of discussion about whether or not they can actually do this, but Alton did do it. So,
Thank you for your Representative Mileage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon the decision that Alton made, can you report to this committee what changes they have made in their curriculum to be more rigorous than the Common Core?
wow, rigorous is a difficult definition. We have not been able to define through the DOE what rigorous really means. But for your question, I think most of the debate that's happening right now in Alton is trying to figure out from the DOE what assessment we can have, since we do not want to follow the Common Core. And that's what most of the discussion has been about. There has been talk that there are standards in Massachusetts that our school would like to use, which were tremendously rigorous for many years. Massachusetts was the #1 with regard to student assessment testing.
Just as a follow-up, but Massachusetts has adopted the Common Core.
You know what, Massachusetts has, and right now Massachusetts is going through a big debate about whether or not it should have done so.
But they have adopted.
They did adapt it, many states did for Race to the Top funding.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Is Representative Mary Eve here? Mary Eve?
She could not be here.
All right, I'm sorry. We do have written testimony from Representative Eve. Representative Peter Hanson. Welcome to House Education.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Peter Hanson, Representative Peter Hanson, representing the town of Amherst, Hillsborough County, District 22, and I will be brief. I would ask the committee to consider the fact that with all the discussions that are going on about this program, Common Core, that not to support this bill would essentially be putting every child that's in the New Hampshire educational system into as a rat in a lab. There is so much that is not being said, that has not been sorted out, that essentially we would become a testing area for things that have not yet to be settled. I would also say that if you want to compare the United States education system to other countries or the rest of the world, once they put a man on the moon, then we should be concerned about that.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative, further questions? Representative Hanson, I'm sorry, I missed your name. Couldn't read your oath.
No.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Representative Marjorie Porter. Welcome to House Education.
Thank you, Representative. For the record, my name is Marjorie Porter. I represent Hillsborough District 1, the towns of Hillsborough, Antrim, and Windsor, and I apologize for my voice, so I'll be very brief. I have been a public school teacher for most of my life, and I left public school teaching on purpose in 2002 because I was opposed to the No Child Left Behind Act, as well as standardized testing. I continue to maintain my abhorrence for the over-testing of America's students. However, I'm here today to speak in support of the Smarter Balance test. You don't know how much of a change that is for me. The Smarter Balance test, we are required still by law to give tests to all children in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11. That is the law of the country. And when I look at the Smarter Balance test and compare it to other standardized fill-in-the-bubble tests that I've experienced in my career, I must say, if we have to have a test, I'd rather have it be this one. It's computer adaptive, It allows children to move along at their own speed. The results are more reliable. The information gotten from it helps teachers to help students to learn in their best capacity. In addition, New Hampshire serves as a testing ground state for this test. It allows us to have greater input into the development of the test and gives us the hand, the control. Our No Child Left Behind waiver provides that we do not use the results of these tests for several years in teacher evaluation. And I'm not particularly concerned about data mining because I know Representative Kirk and Representative Cordelli are working closely on that issue. And if you can't trust Representative Kirk for privacy issues, I don't know who you can trust. So with that, I will close my testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions, Representative Gray?
Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking my question. Would you believe the answer to Representative Peterson's initial question to us regarding an example which was fundamentally division is really that all of our binary operations in the field of real numbers are counting, and the division algorithm actually breaks division down to a simple process of counting, and the example she mentioned is much more fundamentally concept and based upon the field postulates of the real numbers than simply taking a number and dividing it by another?
Yes, I would believe that, and I would also believe, knowing what I know about how children learn, that performing that particular task in that particular way will give them a greater understanding, so that when they do go and learn the division table, they will know what they're doing.
Thank you for your testimony. The chair will Representative Cordelli.
Thank you. Quick.
Remember, my voice is going, Representative.
Thank you for taking my questions. You mentioned that New Hampshire would be a testing ground state for the Smarter Balance. Does being a testing ground concern you at all when you look at what has happened in New York State with being a testing ground state for a new assessment and test scores dropping by 30% and parents, teachers, and administrators pretty much out in the streets with pitchforks?
Well, I would be, except I'm not concerned at all about test score results. I never have been. So if the test score results, if we're comparing apples and oranges, and the kids in Hillsborough, with the apples are scoring 90, and with the oranges they're scoring 80, we're not comparing two things that are the same. I think we have a unique opportunity here in the state to direct where this kind of program is going. And I think that we should be glad of that, and I'm not concerned, no.
Thank you for your testimony. And I would remind Representative Cordelli, Representative Harris, and Representative Bick, you were all co-sponsors of this bill, so I have to refrain from questions.
I don't believe I was.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not. I just was brought to my attention. Representative, the chair will recognize Representative Brenda Grady.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And representatives of the committee. My name is Brenda Grady, and I represent Hillsborough 21, which is the town of Merrimack. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today because you're dealing with issues that are near and dear to my heart. I am a retired high school teacher. I was chairman of the science department in my large town. I have been a school board member. I have dealt with curriculum revisions for science and math and health in 2 different cities. It is something very close to me. And because of that, I want to say that the Common Core comes, I think, as close as you can possibly get to what we all think we want for our students, and that is excellence. Excellence. Excellence in their learning and their understanding. That is a big difference. Prior standards have gotten better, but they're a long far cry from where we should be. New Hampshire has done a very good job. We heard that Massachusetts has done a very good job. The point is that proficiencies in every state vary. You can take a student who claims to have scored a certain score in one city or in one state. It's a far cry from another state. And that's because their standards are written with such variability that some states who may rank in 2007, states were ranked according to their rigor and the proficiencies in how well the students matched. We found that New England states were much higher, but there were some who earned D's and F's in their proficiencies because their expectations were so low. How can we expect in a mobile society that a student who crosses the border could vary that greatly because the expectations of the standards of that state are so low? We know, I imagine if I asked that anyone here who's also a native of New Hampshire, I am a native of New Hampshire. I bet not a lot are. And if you take a look at your siblings and your children, their grandchildren, they're everywhere in the States. How do we know what kinds of rigor they are expecting? The Common Core expects consistency right across the states. I think this is so valuable so that we can compete with those international companies, that if you're successful in this state, you can be successful in that state. A reader in New Hampshire, a good reader in New Hampshire, will also be able to be a good reader in another state if they have similar expectations. Madam Chair, representatives, I understand that there are difficulties with Common Core. I fully expect that we will continue to have some difficulties. But when taking the standards, incorporating them into our state, following that rigor, that's remarkable rigor, then we can only benefit from it. Take the time to do it. Let's take the time to get the best. Don't pull the rug. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Do you have a question? Please.
I don't have written.
Can you
I
get
shall
us a
yes.
copy of it? Thank you very much. The
Thank
chair recognizes Representative Cynthia Chase. Representative Chase, you have requested 10 minutes, and I will give you 2. That's fine. Sorry. There are, the reasons for that is that we have a number of public members who are here, and I really want to get to public testimony. However, it is courtesy within the House of Representatives to recognize representatives first, because the assumption is that they then have to go to other committees. So that's why we're rushing through this. And I recognize Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Cynthia Chase. I represent Cheshire 8, which is West Keene, Ward 5. I was asked to testify today and did not get my testimony together until late last night. And I would like to apologize because there's some typos in it. And I apologize for that. Since you promised that you will read it, I'm done. Thank you very much.
That was great.
You asked, I gave.
Maybe I can try the same thing with Representative Murataki. Where are you? Who has also requested less than 10 minutes, but I would hope that you would be even less than that, Representative Murataki.
It should be a whole lot.
And whoever rests 5 minutes. You come on other bills where we don't have so many people testifying, it's getting much warmer.
So, Chairman Guile, honorable members of the House Education Committee, I'm Representative David Murakami for the record from Nashville Fifth Ward. I also chair the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee of the National Board of Education, which governs SAU 42, and I'm pleased to see I have other board members here with me. Of the various bills that I've sponsored this year, I'm most often asked, so Dr. Murakami, why did you sponsor HB 1508? Because we know you don't absolutely hate the Common Core, you're just primarily interested in getting the assessments pushed back for a bit. Well, that's basically correct, but really, the reason why I decided I would sponsor this bill, it's a simple bill, is that if you read it, what you find out is that, number one, it removes the state from mandating the Common Core. But it does not prohibit the local school districts from adopting the Common Core on a voluntary basis and to implement it as needed. You know, in the past, for example, some of our towns, like Bedford, adopted the International Baccalaureate program on their own at the vote of their elected board. I think that the Common Core should be the same way. If you like the Common Core, and I'm sure some districts will, then adopt it. If the state removes itself from the Common Core, my assumption is that we're going to fall back to the legacy, math, and ELA grade level expectations. And from what I've heard, and from my own study, it would seem that the Common Core standards actually meet up to those GLEs. So if the school district does in fact choose to adopt voluntarily the Common Core, then it automatically satisfies the previous New Hampshire grade level expectations for math and ELA. This state has stated on numerous occasions that it is not going to reimburse the districts for the cost of implementing the Common Core. By the way, I've emailed the committee just this morning a National Conference of State Legislators web page that actually describes the cost estimates of implementing the Common Core. So it is more than zero, I will tell you that. So the thing is, it's also true, and I'll just read very, very briefly from Title 15 Education, RSA 186:5. It shall be the duty of school boards and employees of school districts to comply with the rules and the regulations of the state board. Shall be the duty. Now, I don't know if any of you are attorneys, I'm not, but I'm also fairly familiar with contract law. Will, must, and shall. Those are the three words. Shall is the strongest. It is an absolute, unwigglable mandate law. Shall. And this basically means that we elected members of school boards across the state and our administration of the SAUs we govern are bound to obey the dictates of the Common Core. The Common Core was adopted by the State Board of Education. I provided a copy of the implementation framework for Common Core as part of this written testimony. And so I ask this committee, please go ahead and support this bill and allow the districts to adopt Common Core voluntarily with their own funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for Representative Montaki, Representative Bone?
Thank you. Since you're on the Board of Ed in Nashua, how much are you thinking that, or have you figured out, Common Core is going to cost the city of Nashua?
You know, that's an interesting question. The answers range all the way from zero, which is supported by our superintendent and some members of our board, to as much as $400 a student. Most of those funds are in the additional technology costs. And by the way, we have actually done most of the technology upgrades already. I, as a member of the school board, was actually using the Common Core as a whip to drive the technology changes that we've needed. And it's been close to $2 million since we started. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
All right.
The chair will recognize Representative Janine Nutter, who has asked for 45 seconds. Now,
Yes,
I don't know, we have a...
Really great. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. For the record, I'm Janine Nodder, represent the town of Merrimack, Hillsborough 21. I have 3 points to make, I'll be very quick. Number one, I'm a co-sponsor, so I obviously support the bill. And I ditto to everything Representative Cormier said earlier. 2, constituents in my town have asked me to do what I can to stop Common Core. They do not like it. Here's one example. My son and his best friend said, please get rid of smarter ballots. They had to take the test and they hated it. Teachers in California that I had lunch with last week also hate Common Core, but that's California, this is New Hampshire. And 3, an example from a Common Core workbook for first grade. It's a lesson on using emotional words to get emotional response. Mother blanks me to clean my room. A tells B nags. The correct answer is nags, because nags is the emotional word. I don't know about you, but I do not want my child saying that I'm a nag, and nag is a horse. If the mother, he cleans his room because I tell him to. So that's it. There are other speakers, and thank you for letting me speak and for listening.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Thank you. Representative Baldassaro, and I will have to ask you to reduce your amount of time.
I sure will. You know, I'm pretty quick there, Madam Chair. as you know. I've been known to just use a couple of words that I gave attention on the issue. So I'll be on good behavior. Thank you. For the Representative, I probably should have been here earlier, but I was in committee myself. But Representative Al Baldassaro, Rockingham County, District 5, which is Londonderry. I had an opportunity to go to and talk with some teachers on the side there that will not go and talk with their educator, their superintendents. We're fortunate in my town, Londonderry, we spend a lot of money in education. I think we spend about 14, almost 15,000, close to that per kid. So we take it personal on education. This is like No Child Left Behind, the race to the top, now Common Core is unfunded to the community. Very simple. Massachusetts, I got a lot of family in Massachusetts. I wish that we took a look at Massachusetts and see what they were doing right for many years. But they took the carrot, they took the money, whatever. Why would you give up the Massachusetts way and go to Common Core, which dumbs down? Okay, there's a lot of problems with this system here. I don't have kids in the schools no more, but my wife now has 2 children. They think it's crazy. They don't like it. They said it's nothing like before. One size does not fit all. And I'm going to be real quick here on just a couple other areas. I already said it's an unfunded mandate. There's assessment issues, there's privacy issues. We don't like Real ID here. Republicans and Democrats voted it down. Why are we giving up our information on our children to a third party? I went to the education convention in Boston, and it's a shame when what the Governors Association want for this here. And I'm hoping we stop it and give it to local control. Manchester did the right thing, Alton did the right thing, and I don't know if Nash was moving to that area. But there's a lot of issues in my town with parents on this here. Local control, thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony
Is that
and for the
fast?
brevity of your testimony, Representative Baldassaro. Questions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Now we can get to the public. And I will call on Katie McLaughlin, who's asked for 2 minutes. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my name is Katie McLaughlin, I'm from Hampton Falls. I support this bill. I do also support standards and accountability, but not in the Common Core way. I have 4 children of my own, and I can see firsthand how they are so very different. They all learn differently and they all test differently. This is much too close to a one-size-fits-all approach to education. I recently looked at the website of an SAU in a nearby town, and I looked through their math standards. It was very detailed. If my child was in that classroom, any of my children were in that classroom, I would have no choice as a good parent but to pretty much redo all the math lessons every night because they would not be on level for my child. Common Core allows for only 15% deviation from the standards. I do not believe that's enough. My husband and I both have STEM degrees. I believe that we were both able to attain those because we started algebra in 7th and 8th grade. We both also received full ride scholarships to college, And my husband received full ride scholarship for his master's degree, again in engineering. I know that for my children, several of them are on track to do the same thing. And it would be very sad if they were in a school that all of a sudden could not have the funding to supply those classes early enough for them. In short, I have big concerns about the Common Core implementation. It has not been deliberated enough. And while we hear that it is not curriculum, we all know that curriculum ends up dictating standards. New Hampshire can do better by not telling everyone what to learn and when. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions for Ms. McLaughlin? Seeing none, thanks again for coming. And the chair will recognize Shannon McGinley.
Morning.
Good morning. No, afternoon.
Is it?
We started in the morning.
Got it. Hi, good morning. My name is Shannon McGinley, and I live in Bedford. And I'm here as a mom of 4 boys. I have a 2nd grader, a 6th grader, a 9th grader, and an 11th grader. And I'm here representing several other moms that were unable to be here because they're at home dealing with sick kids or working, or even some of them are here at the State House for a school field trip. I'm asking you today to vote yes on HB 1508. There's been a lot of talk about Common Core from a theoretical perspective, but I've been living it at my kitchen table now for a year and a half. And my testimony today will be focused on my 2nd grader, Quinn. Even though my older boys experienced elements of Common Core in their curriculum in the past, I'm seeing a trend now where it is the core of their curriculum. The lessons, are no longer in the margins, but they're at the core of the lesson, and they're graded on it. Where before it was kind of like testing them to see if they could reason through it. I believe that the lessons are developmentally inappropriate for these kids. Now, again, I'm speaking to my 2nd grader of what I know. He's been using Common Core line textbooks now we're into our 4th semester of it. They're developmentally inappropriate because they're asking them to think abstractly at the age of 6 and 7 years old. The lessons and the worksheets are very convoluted, confusing, and verbose. The lessons are very scattered. They're kind of like a mile wide and an inch deep. They go from lesson to lesson. They don't go deep and make sure that they have mastered it before they've moved on to the next one. So the kids, I'm finding, are getting very confused because it's just boom, 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 jumping. Every day we come home with another lesson before I feel like that he's mastered the lesson before it. I'm actually going to pass around, Madam Chair, is that all right if I pass around some sample worksheets? So the ones that are stapled are actually my son. It even has his name at the top of it. And then this lesson, another mom in our school asked that I pass this on. This is her son's worksheet. And I think it's important to note that my son, in fairness, is probably in the upper tier of his class. The one that I'm passing out second, her son would be considered to be sort of average in his class. So I wanted you to sort of see the differences in the way that the child writes it out. So so they have to show they have to be taught these multiple strategies of how to get a very simple answer. And they have to then, after they've mastered these multiple strategies, then they have to choose which one they want to use, like a buffet. And then they have to explain their answer. And again, I'm talking about 6 and 7-year-olds to write this out. And they have to write out their explanation of how they got the answer in words. When you're asking a 6 or a 7-year-old to not verbally, but to write out how they got the answer when they're just learning how to read and write. And so you can see that it would be a bit challenging to be able to do that. I've also found that the vocabulary has changed, and that all of us probably know terms like borrowing or carrying over when we're doing addition or subtraction. No words used like that anymore. They use the word regrouping.
Mrs. McGinley, you asked for 2 minutes. You've now had 4.
Okay, all right, I'll wrap it up. But I am concerned about how it's impacting the kids, that they're losing their love for math, that even in 6 and 7-year-olds, they're already determining, oh, I'm not very good in math, I'm not going to be a math person. And worse yet, the parents are concluding that their 6 or 7-year-old just is not gonna be good in math, and I find that that's pretty upsetting. I also have been supplementing with a 1991 math textbook where it's just straightforward arithmetic. The teachers feel like that they can't cross off those problems at the bottom. I want to highlight, I'm wrapping it up, Madam Chairman, that the questions that are at the bottom are the ones that I want to highlight to you, not necessarily the lesson at the top. And I just implore all of you to consider the fact that, my husband has a Harvard MBA, he works in the world of finance, and he finds it difficult to figure out how to help our second grader do their math because the questions are so convoluted. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. The chair will recognize Joe Mendola. Joe Mendola, who's asked for 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Joe Mendola. I'm a concerned grandparent. I started an organization called Grandparents and Parents Opposed to Common Core. And the reason why I'm here today is that I have spent the last 30 years trying to figure out how the federal government got involved in our school system. I had to, with my children, had to endure whole language learning systems, Goals 2000, No Child Left Behind, and here we are with my grandchildren at Common Core standards. The basis for the first 133 years of our school system has been local control, parents, teachers, and school principals developing curriculum, and that strengthened our country to become, when we became #1 in the world, okay? In the last 35 years, Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, has admitted that in 35 years, in this generation, we've gone from #1 in the world to #9 in the world. Well, the only thing that's changed is the Department of Education became a cabinet level position and went to work on our children. So, and the other thing is the legality of this. In a speech Secretary Duncan gave to the UN, wish he had given it to the parent-teachers organizations of the states around the country. He said, in order to get the stimulus money, there are 4 assurances that had to be given by the governors of all 50 states. And they've pursued these 4 areas in exchange for funds. Folks, that is again, there are laws in the books that the federal government cannot use those funds to direct, there's 3 laws in the books. And this is not a political issue because 2 of those 3 laws were endorsed and signed by 2 liberal Democratic presidents. One was Richard Nixon, who was the one conservative one. So this is an American education issue. And the thing that Representative Cordelli is concerned about, data mining, just got a letter from Senator Edward Markey, a somewhat liberal senator from Massachusetts, who wrote a letter to Secretary Duncan to explain why he's going into the Family Education Rights Protection Act and taking away the safeguards for our children. The reason why he did it is so that you could do this kind of thing here. But the critical point of the whole matter is, it's all about the children. We mentioned that the 8 principals in New York State. I called Tim Farley, who was the principal of Ichabod Middle School outside of Albany, New York. We were on the phone for about 20 minutes. He said, Joe, how long have you been looking at this? At the time it was 2 weeks. He said, we've been doing this for 2 years. We were misled. We wrote a letter of apology to all the teachers, and I said, Principal Farley, why are you so passionate about this? And he said, because I just got tired of walking into school, seeing my children vomiting, losing bowel control, and being stressed out because the amount of testing for 3rd graders and up is 138%, for 3rd graders alone was 163%. He said, just remember where you come from. You came from New Hampshire. Your motto is live free or die. He said, Mr. Mendola, whatever you do not stop. Get rid of the Smarter Balanced Testing Consortium. It's all about the children. It's not about anything else. Our children deserve the best. They need to go through K-12 to have an appetite for enjoying education, not to hate it. Thank you.
Refrain from expressing your support. We do not permit that in our legislative hearings, so please try to cooperate. The chair will recognize Dave Dubay from the BIA.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Dave Juvet. I'm a Senior Vice President with the Business and Industry Association, New Hampshire Statewide Chamber of Commerce, speaking in opposition to House Bill 1508. As I mentioned in my previous testimony, the BIA supports the implementation of the Common Core, thus we're opposed to this bill. I would like to briefly read a letter from Tom Raffio. He is one of the co-chairs of the Business and Education Coalition. With your permission, Madam Chair, could I do so?
Yes,
Dear Chairwoman Guile, I'm writing in my capacity as CEO of Northeast Delta Dental, the chairman of the New Hampshire State Board of Education, and also the co-chair of the Business and Education Coalition, to express my strong support for the New Hampshire College and Career Ready Standards, including the English Language Arts and math portions based on the Common Core state standards. I have great confidence that the Smarter Balance test will meet the needs of educators as they use this assessment as one measure of student achievement. Northeast Delta Dental relies, as do many other major New Hampshire corporations, on New Hampshire public education at all levels. We require critical thinkers who can engage our customers in literate and confident ways and solve problems that require strong foundation knowledge in a range of math, statistical, and writing skills. With the adoption of the Common Core standards, New Hampshire companies can be confident that our educators share that goal. The State Board of Education endorsed the Common Core standards in 2010 after years of work with the New Hampshire Department of Education alongside their peers in other states. The department and hundreds of New Hampshire teachers reviewed each draft of the standards in detail and provided feedback that we then saw reflected in subsequent drafts. We felt as if we had a strong voice in the development of the new standards. Now, after years of committed work by teachers and district leadership getting the new standards into classrooms across the state, teachers are seeing the benefits, and we hear strong support from all corners of New Hampshire. Our educators see the Common Core as a major step forward for New Hampshire children. Northeast Delta Dental applauds the dedicated work of our New Hampshire educators in putting these improved standards to work in classrooms for our students. I am aware, as we all are, of controversy surrounding the standards and the difficulties some states have had in implementing the standards in a way that benefits children. That is why I am all the more proud of our accomplishments here in New Hampshire. I'd like to, without going through the entire letter, Madam Chair, I would just like to say in closing, Tom Raffio, who again is President and CEO of Northeast Delta Dental, would like to convey his support for the Common Core and the unanimous support of the New Hampshire Coalition of Business and Education, a group that he co-founded with Fred Coker. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Representative Cordelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here and providing your testimony. I was just curious about the Business and Industry Association's examination of the Common Core standards prior to issuing your support for it. Have you investigated the standards? Have you read the standards? Talked to anyone on either side of the issue? Or maybe some of the critics even, to see where they think the standards are deficient?
Thank you for the question. I have personally read the standards, and staff has worked closely with the Department of Education, the School Administrators Association, and various individual organizations that are involved in supporting public education in New Hampshire. The decision to support was one that was discussed at a board level, it was a board level decision, and it was a unanimous decision on the part of our 34-member board to support the standards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my follow-up question. I was just wondering if you might have examined any of the literature that have been made public by people who were involved in the development and validation of the standards who were opposed to them. I think there'll be testimony provided here in written format. Maybe you would like a copy of that to look over in consideration of some of the critics.
I'd be happy to take a look at it, Representative Cordelli. I suspect I probably have already seen a lot of the criticism from those individuals who are opposed to Common Core. My belief is they represent a small minority of those who work on development of Common Core standards.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And relative to Dave Dubé reading Tom Raffio's letter, Mr. Raffio called yesterday, asked that his letter be read, and out of courtesy for his position as chairman of the state board and chairman of the Business and Education Coalition, I told him that his letter would be the only thing that would be allowed to be read today. Thank you. The chair will call Laura Alazan. And he is out of town.
Good morning, my name is Laura Alazan. I live in Londonderry. I have 5 kids in school, and I fully support this law. Just one quick example of why I do. Aside from all the evidence that shows that states have already who have moved forward with this have had disastrous results, and people very angry about the way it's gone. I think it's a lesson we need to learn from them. Here in my own town, we took a look at, or the school took a look at the standards, compared to the standards they already had in place, felt that the standards they had in place already did a good job, and that the students were doing a good job, and that there wouldn't be a whole lot of the Common Core that they would need. They felt that they matched up pretty good. However, there was enough concern about the Smarter Balance assessments and the privacy concerns that the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and others have sought to get a waiver from Smarter Balance. That was about 3.5 months ago that I first heard about the possibility of a waiver. They've been in contact with Commissioner Barry and others, and yet I wait to find out whether or not we'll be able to obtain a waiver, because it isn't up to her, and it isn't up to the school board, and it isn't up to me as a parent, and it isn't up to anybody in New Hampshire. Apparently, it's up to someone in the federal government. And this really aggravates me, because I live in a town that's known for its very good educational system, and now I have to wait to hear from someone in Washington who believes that there should be a cradle-to-career education continuum that they oversee to decide how my kids are going to be taught and how they're going to be assessed. And all I have to say further about the assessment is, if you support Common Core in New Hampshire, and then you need to understand that all it does is set the table for Smarter Balance. And I hope that someday, when my child's private information is used in a way that is detrimental to my child or to me, then I hope you can look me in the eye and explain to me why you gave their information away. Because that's what we're doing by adopting Common Core. We are setting the table to give our children's privacy away.
Thank you for your testimony. The chair will recognize Natalie Branken.
I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak in regards to this issue.
You asked for 3 minutes.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Natalie Branken. I reside in Manchester, and I am here to testify in support of House Bill 1508. As a high school mathematics teacher, I've attended many graduate courses in professional development in regards to the Common Core. And they essentially amount to education professionals trying to persuade us teachers why we need to change our time-honored and proven methods of education. I'm a very stubborn person, so I always ask why. What is the proof? Where is it? At a recent conference, right here in Concord, the presenter said, well, I have a slide that explains this as a study, but I've neglected to include it in my presentation. I think that's very important. I think that's very academically dishonest. And these have been the answers that I have found when I have pressed forward and asked questions of those who support the Common Core, those who are trying to push it into our schools. As a math educator, I cannot stay silent any longer. The Common Core does not prepare students for careers in math, science, engineering. My father is an engineer. He wanted me to be an engineer, but I chose to be an educator instead, because I feel very strongly about math education and how important it is for students. There's an overemphasis on problem-based learning, and also this understanding of this concept of deeper understanding. Unfortunately, the net result of this is that you're going to have students at a young age that are going to memorize these complex things and then understandably forget them or mess them up, because that's not the way that math is supposed to be, and not ideally taught. Students who do well in advanced level mathematics are ones who have memorized the basic algorithm for addition, subtraction, basic arithmetic. Those are the students that can excel in advanced level mathematics. As soon as you have a student who has to be reliant upon technology, they're already 8 steps behind the A game. Your brain works faster than a calculator. Did you know that? Even those of us who feel we have slow brains, they work faster than a calculator. I truly feel that these standards will drive away qualified educators with actual content knowledge out of the teaching profession. They're not rigorous, they're not internationally benchmarked, they're not good for students, for teachers, for communities or families. Let me say this as an aside. Wealthy families might be able to afford to hire tutors or pull their children out of schools to supplement the deficiencies that our students will find under Common Core, and I truly do believe that. The failed methodologies of reform math will only serve to hurt the poor and vulnerable the most and perpetuate a cycle of math illiteracy and poverty. And this is why I'm asking you to support House Bill 1508. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very, pardon me?
I have any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Bohm and then Representative Cordell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for taking the question. I'm glad to hear that we have a teacher here and a math teacher on, because I've taken some of the Smarter Balance tests, and
I have as well.
And do you find it a problem that we are going to have some outside organization grading the student subjective answers on how they got their answer?
I truly, yeah, I do, because I feel that math is not supposed to be subjective. You know? Either 3 times 4 equals 12, or it doesn't. Really not anything you can debate about. I don't really understand much beyond that, but yeah, I can tell you that's problematic.
Representative Cordelli.
Thank you, Chair, thank you for being here. We heard testimony related to another bill the other day, and the sponsor said that he had talked to business leaders who said the real problem is math skills. Won't Common Core, you seem to be indicating the Common Core will not help our children's math skills. Am I interpreting your comments correctly?
I feel it does not, and one example would be, for example, in the Common Core standards, the way the standards are written, they want students to develop their own algorithms for, we'll say, addition, to be very simple, and then at the end they will teach them the standard algorithm. So some students can sort of, you know, they can put up with that messiness and develop good math standards, but others cannot. So that would be the
That's the sign for another question.
And then I wrap it up.
No.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'm a freshman, but I think the education area that we've had most discussion about here is STEM.
Yes.
What will be the impact of Common Core on STEM education in New Hampshire?
I think you'll see the trend that has existed pretty much since Sputnik, to be honest. There'll be a decrease in the number of students that will go on to those careers, because what happens is, when I see them at high school, they haven't mastered the basic algorithms fluently, they feel very defeated in math, and they don't have a desire to go on in that sort of career in math. I don't feel that STEM careers should be reserved for the elite or for those who happen to be really good at math intuitively. Students should be able to have have those opportunities regardless of their family background or particular propensity for mathematics.
Representative Malley, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, thank you for taking my question. I'm not a math person.
You could have been.
Maybe with you as a teacher.
The concern that I have is that, so I have to rely on others who are in the field.
Sure.
And so, I'm aware of that, are you aware of the Conference Board of Mathematics and Science? It's called the Conference Board of the Mathematical Sciences. This represents 15 different organizations.
Not aware of that particular organization.
But it represents like math teachers, statistical people. They have endorsed the Common Core math.
I'm not surprised.
So as a person who is not a mathematician, I can only rely on those who are engaged in the business. And they have said these are very rigorous programs, and that they do develop students in an appropriate way.
I know, that's the confusing part of all of this. Part of the issue is, I think there's understand what it is the Common Core is about. They don't really see it in action. You know, I can't speak to the particular people who endorse Common Core. I know that the national NCTM, Conference of Teachers of Mathematics, has endorsed it as well, which is something I also find problematic because it's, it's presenting this information to teachers, saying this Common Core is going to produce people in STEM careers, and there's a lot of trust in that because we rely on the knowledge of those who are STEM. But I don't know. I can't understand it. It really, it's sort of beyond math is math. I don't understand why it needs to be so complicated. Why you need to have third graders explaining their answers using words. It's not math. It's writing and grammar, which is great, and I think kids should learn that. But it's not actually teaching them math.
Thank you for your testimony. Okay. And the chair will recognize Dr. Virginia Berry. And this will be our last speaker. This hearing will be recessed to a time certain, and I will get that information out following the commissioner's presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and trustworthy House members. I will have to read my statement since it will be very short. I am the Commissioner of Education for the state of New Hampshire, and I'm opposed to this particular bill, and I'm opposed to any bill that takes away the right and the authority of local control in our schools to do best practices. My appearance today is very distressing given the fact that we are in our 7th year of discussion on the Common Core state standards. I was appointed by Governor Lynch in 2009, and prior to my accepting this position, 2 years of active work had gone on throughout the entire state, including parents, the Parent-Teacher Association, teachers, our professional organizations, curriculum specialists, relative to the Common Core, looking at our own state standards and our alignment, including working with other states in the New England and the NECAP assessment. Many schools in our state are in their 4th year of implementation. Others are in their 3rd, 2nd. Thousands of teachers, leaders, parents, and school boards have committed to improving standards in public education. These stakeholders are confused by how a small, loud group of misinformed individuals continue to distort information regarding Common Core state standards. Make no mistake, these standards raise the bar in our state with regard to teaching and learning. They have been studied, analyzed, reviewed, and now are part of a common language of teaching. I find it shocking that any discussion focused on raising standards and improving teaching and learning will get so much negative attention. The public is confused. Citizens look to us to lead and support their children. We are not in the business of managing school districts. We are charged with supporting our schools to move forward in a time when transformation is taking place in public education. The goal is helping all children to be competent and career and college ready. With the motive of preparing citizens to support our country and our state, improving our state economy, quality education is the #1 reason people reside and migrate to a state. I am grateful to our business leaders who see the critical relationship between better standards in public education and a thriving economy. With this said, I once again want to communicate the facts for the public record. Schools are not required to participate in the Common Core standards. Regardless of the testimony you heard today, there has never been from the outset of this looking at the Common Core that any school district in the state of New Hampshire is required to follow them. However, to their credit, they have made the choice to study them, integrate them into their own standards, with definitions and visions for their schools. I find it interesting that now a group is trying to control by asking for laws preventing the participation and allowing schools to make a determination on what's best for their community. It flies in the face of local control. Districts have their own implementation strategies and may request assistance from the New Hampshire Department of Ed for technical assistance. The cost of any best practice implementation resides with the school district. There is absolutely no indication that this best practice will have a significant impact on financial elements of school budgets. This is particularly aligned with the New Hampshire strategy to be thoughtful before jumping into anything. We should be proud of the mindful educators, school board members in our state that have made the decision to move forward carefully and look at the Common Core standards. These are critical facts, and all of the other distortions branch off of these areas. You have heard testimony after testimony. Smarter Balance is a new form of assessment that will enable us to see children in a different manner. How they think, how they examine, how they analyze, and synthesize information. It is new. We are piloting Smarter Balance in our state. Volunteers in our states have come forward recognizing the value of a new way of assessing children that helps to improve teaching and learning. The best experts in the nation are helping to lead the way to transformative assessment that supports the success of each child and does not carry with it a punitive element of better or worse. I find it extraordinary that an assessment that improves teaching and learning has received so much attention. Thank you. Thank you to all who gave testimony. Parents are finally involved in better understanding their children and how they will perform. The privacy issue that you continue to bring up is being led by New Hampshire and none other than Representative Neil Kirk, who has been mentioned, who leads the country in ensuring that all students and families are protected. We are a leader. Change is difficult, but we all know the face of public education must change to meet the needs of students, preparing them for a complex society in their future. The Common Core standards, new ways of assessing, changing teacher preparation programs, supporting leaders are all parts of a movement toward excellence. Issues such as timing of the test, the amount of testing, and support that teachers will need throughout our state are all within our control. And the state of New Hampshire has been the most verbal state in making sure that these tests are going to meet the needs of the children and the children we serve. Through communication, collaboration across all stakeholders, and coherent decision-making in the best interest of children, we will make our state one of the best in the nation. I attend hundreds of meetings a year, like many of you. Many of these meetings focus on the economy in our state, attracting young people to our state, businesses, corporations. They are all seeking what they perceive to be a high-quality education system. Sadly, the message prevailing in our state today is confusion regarding continuous improvement and innovation in our schools. Who can debate better and clearer standards, improved assessment, competent students? As Commissioner, I would suggest to you that these groups have created an interesting discussion in our state. Helpful, but very old now. The distortions have created greater strength among our educators and our communities. They're looking to us to lead now and move on. These issues have created distractions away from the real issues states like New Hampshire are facing. Childhood poverty, the needs of early childhood, the support for young families, declining enrollments, fragmentation of our schools, the lack of a focus of a seamless quality public education system, pre-K through 20. As Commissioner, I ask you that you continue to lead our state and give clear messages to the public that New Hampshire has a quality education system and is seeking to continue to improve it and innovate it. And I appreciate all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Commissioner. Commissioner?
Yes.
We have a question. Representative
Yes.
Bohm has a question, and also Representative Shaw would like your testimony.
Yes, I will.
And then we have to leave because there is a conflict to run. Representative Bohm?
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, thanks for taking the question. I have one question on the Smarter Balance. The testing, we don't know who's going to grade this testing. So my question is, when these tests go in, what information as to student data, name, etc., is on the test that's going to be graded by some third party?
Absolutely no identifying information is on the test. Absolutely. And by the way, just for everyone's information, the information resides within the school district. The New Hampshire Department of Education does not have access. Any reporting that's federally done is done nameless, and it is moved forward in terms of federal assessment. We do not know any individual student.
Representative Fidel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner. I was just wondering about your statement about misinformation. Would you agree then with Secretary Duncan, who has said that critics were at best misinformed and at worst laboring under paranoid delusions? Or that when he said that white suburban moms have woken up to discover that their children aren't quite as brilliant as they thought they were?
Well, Representative Corneli, I don't necessarily agree with everything Secretary Duncan has said. I wasn't there and I don't know the context, but I do know one thing, that the transformation of public education is absolutely critical to the democracy, and it's absolutely critical to the economy in our state, and that would be my statement.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Committee, before we adjourn, hold on, please. Before we adjourn, in the package of material that is being distributed, you have a letter from Dr. Sandra Stotsky, who has been a leader in terms of the opposition to the Common Core. You also have testimony in opposition to the bill from teachers in Nashua, so teachers in New Hampshire. So I would hope that you would read this material, and this hearing is recessed to a time certain, which will be next Thursday, February the 13th at 3 o'clock. That is all. Next Thursday, February 13th at 3 o'clock, because our other meetings are going to be after.